It's very painful to watch, and every single year we see a player get his prime wasted or his talent wasted by either an incompetent front office or a team that just simply doesn't know how to utilize him. We saw this happening early on in LeBron James's career, and it got so extreme to the point where LeBron James had to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers, join the Miami Heat in order to hopefully put himself in a position to win a championship. So a player that is having his prime wasted may freak out and become terrified to that extent. But in this scenario, in the NBA today, there is significantly more competition, and it may be a little bit more difficult to put a player in a position to succeed. But despite all of that, there are instances of teams being able to take players and put them in positions to succeed by surrounding them with just the right teammates. So in this video, we're going to talk about 5 players whose talent is currently being wasted. Some cases are more extreme than others, so we're going to go in order of least extreme case of talent being wasted to most extreme case of talent being wasted. But before we get to the content, guys, I'm going to give a brief shout out to my sponsor. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever damn near nicked your ball sack or completely ended up chopping your dick off? Well, there's a company here that's sole mission is to prevent this from ever happening again, and they are called Manscaped. Manscaped designed a perfect shaver to ensure that you never nick your balls again, called the Lawnmower 2.0. And as you can see, it's also waterproof, and you could use it on other areas other than just your balls. Now, this company is so legitimate that they were able to secure a huge investment from Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban. And I also got a promo code for you guys to use for 20% off. Use promo code Theflightmike to get yourself a nice little discount whenever you shop for Manscaped products. I hope you guys could forgive that because the NBA is currently claiming all of my videos, so sponsorships are pretty much the only way I make money off of these videos. If a video gets copyright claimed, by the way, guys, I'm gonna probably throw it onto my Instagram TV or onto my Patreon. Both of them are in the description down below, and if you're new to the channel, you see a lot of my content get recommended to you, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because we go full time when I hit 500,000 subscribers. So number 5 is KarlAnthony Towns, and the reason he's number 5 and he's not number 1 is because the Minnesota Timberwolves are in this ridiculously strange position where one of their max contract players, Andrew Wiggins, is still developing, which I don't really understand how that could be. He's been in the league for 5 years, but the good news is things are beginning to look promising for Andrew Wiggins, but I can't help but wonder what is the next step. The Timberwolves need that go-to player that can supplement Andrew Wiggins and KarlAnthony Towns, and they had it at one point in Jimmy Butler. But the problem with that concept is, if they do bring in another star player, they risk Andrew Wiggins becoming passive once again. The only thing that I can think of that will help the Timberwolves fulfill their potential and give KarlAnthony Towns the help that he so rightfully deserves is by bringing in a playmaker via trade. And the playmaker that I'm thinking about is probably the playmaker that you're thinking about. In fact, pause the video right now, comment in the comment section down below who the Timberwolves are going to bring in via trade. I'm going to tell you guys in 3, 2, 1, D'Angelo Russell. This guy, I know a lot of you guys might be wondering, Mike, what is your crush on D'Angelo Russell? But the thing is, you have to understand that if the Timberwolves were to bring in D'Angelo Russell via a trade, it would just make perfect sense, because the only problem I see with the starting 5 of the Timberwolves so far is Jeff Teague. He is without a doubt the weakest link on that team, and we saw from earlier this year that KarlAnthony Towns is playing with an edge, Andrew Wiggins is fulfilling his potential and is making strides, and the Wolves actually looked like a playoff contending team, although we didn't think that they could really contend in the West because the West is the freaking West, bro. It's so competitive over there. So if you get a playmaker like D'Angelo Russell, who is known for his passing and playmaking abilities, who could also score at any moment, who could take over games towards the end of the game, and put him next to a big man that could stretch the floor like KarlAnthony Towns and a high flyer like Andrew Wiggins that could slash the way he does, not only will you have one of the most entertaining teams and without a doubt a league pass worthy team in the Timberwolves, but KarlAnthony Towns will finally have the teammates he needs to make a dent in the playoffs. Which brings me to number 4, and that's Trey Young. Now, Trey Young's inclusion on this list shouldn't be viewed as an insult to the Atlanta Hawks. Rather, it should be viewed as a compliment to Trey Young. I don't believe I have ever seen a player develop as fast as Trey Young has, and honestly, I give props to the Hawks for trading the rights to Luka for Trey, as I do believe they're both incredible talents that can both see Hall of Fame careers. They just acquired an additional draft pick by trading one future All-Star for another. Now, at the moment I'm making this video, Trey Young is still 21 years old and hasn't even entered his prime yet. We could all agree that the average NBA prime is around 26 to 29. So if you think about it, this is really scary because Trey Young is currently averaging 29 points, 8 assists, and a steal per game off of a 24.6 player efficiency rating. Now, I know you guys are just saying, okay, Mike's just throwing crazy numbers at us. Big deal. Those are great numbers. What's the big deal in that? I'm going to give you an idea of how crazy this season is. And this is, of course, assuming that he could keep up this level of production. Steph Curry averaged 30 points, 6.7 assists, and 2 steals, and had a player efficiency rating of 31.5 in his 7th year. In his prime when he won MVP, and that is Steph Curry's best season to date. Now, that was Curry's prime. This is Trey Young's sophomore year. That is absolutely terrifying, man. And honestly, it's very typical of a sophomore rookie to be put on a terrible team because the team that drafted him isn't far removed from drafting the player in the top 5 of the NBA draft anyway. But the thing about Trey is he's always going to be compared to Luka Doncic because of the draft day trades involving the two of them. And so far, the Mavericks are doing a significantly better job surrounding Luka with talent than the Hawks are with surrounding Trey with talent. The one advantage Trey has over Luka is the fact that Luka is in an extremely competitive Western Conference and is still holding his own, whereas Trey Young is in the East with less competition. But at the time this video is being made, the Atlanta Hawks have one of the best trade chips in the NBA, with Chandler Parsons' $26 million expiring contract. That man better be on a new team within the next 2 months. I would like to see a trade for Blake Griffin, and I think that kind of makes sense for both sides. Trey gets some help, Blake goes to a worse team with a better scheme for him, and the Pistons get out of Blake Griffin's contract. But the good news is the Hawks also have some time to figure it out. The only reason Trey Young is on this list, to be honest, is because the Mavericks are doing a way better job surrounding Luka with talent than the Hawks are with surrounding Trey Young. But hey, Jabari Parker's been a cool story this season, hasn't he? Now, number 3 is Bradley Beal. And the good news about Bradley Beal is that he's only 26 years old and is just beginning to enter his prime. He just signed with the Washington Wizards, and I really don't blame him for doing so. Because if you take a step back and look at the Wizards organization, the Washington Wizards seem to be always making the right decisions, but just have had really bad luck after making them. Giving John Wall an extension before he hits the market was the right decision, but he unfortunately tore his Achilles. As a matter of fact, if you look at each and every draft the Wizards had since drafting Beal, they did a solid job with what they had. They took Otto Porter the year after drafting Beal, and when he seemed to be fulfilling his potential, they maxed him out. When it seemed like the Porter, Wall, and Beal Wizards reached their ceiling, they traded him for Jabari Parker to get out of his current contract and to give another former number 2 overall pick with really high potential, by the way, who was seen as a defensive liability but an excellent scorer, a shot to see if he had chemistry with the team. They hired Scott Brooks, who is a very underrated coach, and by underrated, I mean he just doesn't throw away games due to bad coaching. He doesn't make questionable lineups. At least I haven't seen him do so. Wizards fans, let me know in the comment section if he has. And they make very good and underrated free agent acquisitions to improve their teams, such as the addition of Thomas Satoransky and Thomas Bryant last year, and Paul Pierce in 2014, Trevor Ariza in 2015. It just seems like the Wizards are always so close until something bad happens, which is why Bradley Beal probably re-signed with them. I just hope they can turn it around and find a way to get Beal the team he deserves, because at this point I'm sure we can all agree This isn't John Wall's team anymore, it's Bradley Beal's. Number 2 is Blake Griffin, and this is one of the saddest stories ever because I remember watching Blake dunking over everyone in his rookie year. Back in 2012, there wasn't a single doubt in anyone's mind that Blake Griffin was the best player out of that draft class. Now, the player that was picked over Steph Curry, James Harden, and DeMar DeRozan appears to be the most forgotten one, and the sad thing is it's not even his own fault. Blake Griffin is playing remarkable basketball and just seems to be getting better and better with age. Last year, he posted 25 points and 7 rebounds off of 46% shooting, but it seems like the player who was once compared to Karl Malone coming out of college may have a similar ending to his career as Karl Malone, as he may end his career ringless. Griffin has the opportunity to opt out of his contract after the 2021 season, at which he should be 32 years old. But if the Pistons were smart, they would trade him to a team that would want to give him a chance that could use some star power to help their youth develop like the Hawks. It's not like the Pistons are going anywhere with a big three of Andre Drummond, Derrick Rose, and Blake Griffin, but I really applaud them for trying. In an era where everyone is just trying to shoot as many threes as possible, the Pistons are making an actual attempt to build the Twin Towers. I just wish they did it correctly. Like, why wouldn't you surround Blake and Drummond with excellent three-point shooters? Players like Seth Curry, JJ Redick, Ben McLemore, Wesley Matthews, and Ian Clark were all available this offseason, and the Pistons opted for Derrick Rose, who is a flashy name who was coming off of a bit of a career resurgence with the Timberwolves, but he is not what the Pistons need. I love Derrick Rose, but he is shooting 32% from the three this year, which clogs up the paint and makes it difficult for the Pistons to operate. Honestly, the only players that make sense on the Pistons to keep at this point, if they want to surround Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond with talent, is Markieff Morris, Tony Snell, Thon Maker, and Luke Kennard. And honestly, Thon Maker's just there because he could be developed into a monster maybe one day. Luke Kennard can hit the three, Markieff Morris can hit the three, Tony Snell's a good two-way player, a decent two-way player. Which brings me to number 1. Damian Lillard, the 6th most efficient player in the league, averaging 26 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds per game. Yet, the Blazers are just on the outside looking in as they're 9th place in the West at the time of this video. They've committed money to CJ McCollum. They've made their team worse by trading away Mo Harkless and trading Myers Leonard for Hassan Whiteside. And they've become so desperate for star power that they've signed Carmelo Anthony, who has been an awesome story thus far. But now the Blazers' entire season hinges on Carmelo being able to turn back the clock on top of crushing the narrative that he is a bad teammate, which to his credit, he has been able to do so far. And I really hope so as a Carmelo fan that he continues to do so. But the reality is, Damian Lillard is in the midst of his prime. He's 29 years old, so this is the best version of Dame that you are going to get. And you have to surround him with better than just a 35-year-old Carmelo Anthony, CJ McCollum, and Hassan Whiteside, especially if you want to compete in the West.